What's up, guys? This is Jean-Luc Grandpierre, and you're listening to the Sheriff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to an exclusive episode of The Sheriff. Guys, today I have the man. I have the man today as my special guest, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, hockey is a very physically demanding game. And as a former player, I must admit, when I had another tough guy in the lineup, I played a lot tougher. I played a lot bigger. I'll admit that. My guest today is the biggest, strongest, and most intimidating player when he was in the NHL, and he was my favorite. You have to admit, ladies and gentlemen, if you had a guy like this on the bench, that you would probably play a little bit bigger and you would probably play a little bit tougher. I know you would. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a Memorial Cup champion. He is currently the director of youth hockey for the Florida Panthers. Without further ado, Mr. Peter Worrell, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well, man. That's quite the introduction. I feel very bloated in the head right now, so it's a good way to get started.
Well, we're gonna get bloated today, buddy, because this is a celebration of your career, Big Pete. And like, I'll tell you one thing, man. You're 5 years older than me, okay? So I consider an era to be kind of within like 10, 12 years of the age group, right?
Yeah.
And Pete, I believe that our era of hockey was very, very important to the history of this game. And I need to magnify it. I've been given a platform to be able to do that. So my guests that I usually have on the show are the biggest characters I can find. And if they're an NHL enforcer that just terrorized the league while he played, that doesn't hurt either, Mr. Peter Worrell. So I'm just glad to have you on, my man.
Honestly, I'm very happy to be here for you. So it's I don't do these a lot, but when you came calling, I was definitely jumping on.
I know you don't, and that's why I knew it was so exclusive. Because Pete, I'm a former player, buddy. I got a little sniff in Buffalo, but I was mostly an AHL guy. Played across the pond for a couple years.
Yeah.
Really embraced the pro life career. I did a lot of stuff off the ice, bro. That's why I'm so impressed with your job now. So I'm gonna pick your brain. I know the listeners will have a lot of questions too about the role that you have with the Florida Panthers with the youth program. But Pete, I'm the type of guy that, with my big characters, brother, I like to go to the beginning. I know I'm probably not going to say it properly. You're going to laugh at me, but I'm going to try. Pierrefonds, Quebec.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was pretty much right on line. I guess the proper way, would be Pierrefonds, but that's the French in me. But I'm an English Canadian kid. I mean, we called it Pierrefonds growing up. When I talk about it, it's Pierrefonds. So it's no, you did exceptionally well. It's a tough word. It's a big one. So it's a tough one.
It is. So I have to admit though, Pete, when I was doing the research, and I've had George's on the show. I've had a couple of guys from Montreal on the show. And I assumed that you might be Haitian. You're not. You're not. You're a Haitian. Yeah. I have so many people from there. I think it's such a cool place, man. I've dated a couple of girls from there.
Absolutely. Barbados strong, man. What do you mean?
Yeah, bro.
Absolutely.
Just so the listeners can get an idea. Like, my father's from Trinidad and Tobago, right? Okay. So I'm West Indian as well. But beautiful. In my opinion, I just find that your country seems to be thriving in education. Doesn't seem to be anything close to a third world country. Like, it's quite a nice life where your parents are from, isn't it?
It is. I mean, obviously it depends on what part of where you're from, whatever. But no, education was very, very strong there. My parents were very well educated. They were bankers. That got transferred over to Canada. We're very proud to be Bajans. We're very the Worrell name is well known. Grandfather was, what's called one of the three W's. So he was a cricketer, for the West Indies,
Wow.
which was really cool actually. When I got to Florida, originally too with Kevin Weeks, because it was the three W's were Worrell, Weeks, and Walcott. So the fact that we were both there together at the same time, starting together. Our parents knew each other. I guess my mom taught his dad in school. So,
No way.
yeah, it's a very, very small area.
Wow.
Anson Carter was another kid from that area, from Barbados. His family from Barbados, as well. I guess Freddie Brathwaite, who's
Yeah.
a cousin of mine. So,
Is he?
yeah, for a little bit of time, Barbados was the place for, I guess, for black hockey players.
Yeah, man.
We always joked about, trying to start a team Barbados, but unfortunately Anson and Weeksy were a little too good and they had to play for Canada beforehand, so it didn't really help us out.
Could you imagine though? That would have been off the hook, man.
It really would have been fun.
Playing?
Yeah, it would have really been fun. Actually we run a tournament here in our building here. The Latam Cup, LATAM, and it's a tournament basically that's with kids, teams from all over the world. So we get teams from Mexico, teams from Argentina, teams from Middle East. We're really trying to open the game up for everybody. In the last 2 years, the winner of it was Team Jamaica. So I mean, wow. The first time seeing it, it was I was really proud for them and happy for them. But yeah, it was a little bittersweet that the dream of a 15, 19, 20-year-old kid kind of got squashed, and we weren't able to represent it as Team Barbados.
Wow. But I mean, just to know, like I'll be honest with you, half of those names that you mentioned, I didn't know were Bayesian, right?
Yeah.
So knowledge is power,
yeah.
man. That's a movement, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude,
a lot of West Indians. We're all first generations, right? So
that's
a
right.
lot of West Indians. Yeah.
That's right. Obviously, the West Indian population in Toronto, specifically Scarborough, where I grew up, is big as well, right? So,
correct.
Yeah, man. I think it's important to come from a strong culture, man. Like you have to bring something to the table.
Yeah, no. Look, I think it's something that's always informed me in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways that I think, right? So, not only the struggle and the work ethic that West Indian parents put into, but just kind of seeing the game a little bit differently and wanting it to be more of a global game and really wanting to be inviting to everybody, right? Like I've never, I think one of the things about hockey is it's always been in some ways kind of limiting themselves in terms of just who we are and what are hockey players. And that's never been my MO. It's never been my thought process. I'd love to see people from all cultures played, all races played, all genders and whatnot, and all sexualities. I mean, just let's play the game. Like, let's make this game the biggest thing on the planet. And that's what I'm. In this role, I'm continuing to work for.
I noticed, and then thanks for sharing that, Pete. I noticed when I was doing, like, I keep referring back to the research. I really enjoyed researching you, bro. And the one thing that I really liked is the fact that you point out that you just liked to play when you were young, because that was you. You're Canadian, and that's what we do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No.
Especially
absolutely.
if you're from. Sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think being a first generation too. I mean, I was very lucky. My dad came to Montreal or Hamilton actually in the early 70s or late 60s, early 70s. My dad's a little older, and he just fell in love with the Canadians, right? So it was like they were having a big run at that time, and he fell in love with hockey, and he went back to Barbados, and then when he came back and brought us, the first thing he wanted to do was just what's a way to get my kids to get out of the house because they're annoying the hell out of me, but to integrate themselves a little bit in the community. And hockey was kind of just a natural thing. And I have an older brother, so I followed him to the rink. my cousin. Shout out to Dwayne the Train Douglas.
Dwayne the Train.
Yeah, he was the star guy in our neighborhood, and he was the guy that we all wanted to be. And so I mean, it was easy to kind of follow him, and whether it was on the ice or we had we had a finished basement in the house, and I remember putting all the couches or the cushions in front of the TVs and the electronics, and we just play in the basement every day. Me and my other young cousin against my brother and my older cousins, and we take a beating, and then whatever, we lose all the time, but we just wanted to keep playing and to keep doing it to the day that we could finally beat them. So hockey was just what I loved, right? So I mean, I played everything growing up. I think our generation, that's kind of what we did, but I just loved the game of hockey, and it was everything was always about trying to get back on the ice. Yeah.
I had, and thanks for sharing that, Pete. I had Jean-Luc Grandpierre on the show last week, and Jean-Luc's experience, like childhood playing hockey, was a lot different from George Laraque and Sorel. Jean-Luc being in Laval. Yeah. How was it for you in Pierrefonds in that regard?
It wasn't too bad, I'll be honest with you.
Melting pot there?
It was a bit more of a melting pot, and I was pretty fortunate. The first team I played on, actually, I think we had like four guys that played in the NHL, and about 12 that at least played major junior or D1 college, right?
One of them is Jason Doig, right?
And that's who the one I was going to bring up. I mean, the big name is LeCavier. I mean, he's the one that ended up having, the one that we used to always make fun of, but ended up having, a much better career. He could buy all of us now. You guys made
fun of him?
Oh yeah, he was the younger.
He was a nerd or what?
No, you know what it was, and now I look back, I'm like, damn, he did the right thing. But we all started and we just played, and he, I think those first couple of years he was doing a lot of figure skating, right? So we'd make fun of him for toe picks and stuff like that, like Jean-Luc, right? And looking back at it, I was like, damn, I should have
probably
told my dad to do that, right? Like, dude turned into a 6'4" monster who could just skate, right? So no, it was he was obviously the biggest name of that group, but growing up, it was Jason Doig. Jason Doig was the guy that was the highest ranked kid every time, and he was a big, strong Jamaican kid, and I think that's part of what made it a little simpler for me too. Was being on the team with him every year, and we had our fights, we've had our dust ups over the years, but I think overall we always knew that we could support each other. We always knew our parents were there for us. He comes from another strong Jamaican family as well, and his mom and dad and his sister Sarah were really big in my family and family's life. And if anything happened, it never really happened at home. If it was stuff that happened on the road, we had somebody there to kind of support us and get us back into the hallways and playing knee hockey.
Yeah, and that's an awesome story, bro. Yeah. So, but Doisy seems to be a guy that, like, he's a really good guy, isn't he? Like, he cares. Like, he cares about his buddies. He cares about absolutely. People that he believes in.
I think I would say that was like the kids in my neighborhood were all like that, and the guys that I played with were all like that. So like, again, like, Doiger was a great guy. Vinny's a great guy. I see him every once in a while. Oh, I used to see him every once in a while down here in Florida, but I guess he'll be in Montreal a little bit more. PJ Stock and his brother Dean, I've known them forever. Like Dean was my centerman most of my life. And,
really?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, PJ was another guy I've known for forever. Right. And it's the same thing. We've always, even if we're not around each other, even if we don't see each other for years, we really deeply care for each other. And, I give the shirt off the back for any of those guys at any time. That never changes.
Man, that is quite the group. I would not want to play against your guys.
We were pretty good.
Ball hockey.
We were pretty good, and we could play any way you wanted to. It was fun.
So Pete, one of my favorite things to ask my guests about like childhood hockey, I shouldn't say childhood hockey, minor hockey, is the International Quebec Pee Wee Tournament.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that you competed. You're
Yeah.
on a team from the North Shore.
Yeah.
What team was it that you went with?
It was we did it 2 years. The second
did you?
year, yeah. The second year, we won it, or won the second part of it. Again, my youth team was really good. Like we won every year. I think that year, that Pee Wee year, we won a Jean Pierre tournament, which was a big tournament, like in northern Quebec, and we won the Quebec tournament as well. And then we won everything that we pretty much faced, right? I remember that year.
Well, you guys had an all-star team.
We really did. We were really good. I remember that year. I think it was the first time we had ever played like Little Caesars or any of those American teams, and honestly, it was a race to see who get the first hat trick. Like we weren't losing to anybody. We had a really good program. But the good thing about our program is that league that we played in is only a 4-team league, but every year it was somebody else that was the team that beat. Like we just kept battling each other year after year, and I think it made a lot of players in that Montreal area really good, at least in that 78, 77, 76, 78 birth year.
Yeah. So now, when do you think you really started like becoming like a good player? Like when did you start getting better than everybody else? What age was that? Was it Pee Wee or before that?
Oh, it was before that. Yeah, no, okay. I was and it was mainly because I was just bigger. I never had the growth spurt, right? So I came out the womb probably about 6'2". No, I mean, as a kid, I was always one of the leading goal scorers or in the province, and especially goals. Like I could score goals, in my sleep back in the day, and to my detriment, I just relied on it, right? So I didn't work on some of the other things that earlier on that I probably should have, that I ended up having to work on much later to catch back up. But it was up until Bantam. I think I was ahead of everybody, and then guys got by me, and I think that was the first year I got cut from a team, and it was pretty jarring.
Bantam?
Yeah, my first year Bantam. I got cut from a North Shore team, and it was obviously I was angered, but it just meant to go back to work and work on some stuff. And then I think when I went to try out for Midget AAA a couple years later, I remember literally I led the training camp in exhibition and scoring, and then I was cut. So it was like I was cut for two young guys. So that was the one that really hurt, and I think that's the one where at that point it was like, well, I'm either gonna stop playing competitively, or for lack of a better term, fuck the world. I'm gonna burn this motherfucker down, and I'm just gonna work, that's kind of what I did, and when I had a good year that year, and got drafted to late rounds at Tahal, and I wasn't really necessarily expecting to make that team, but I was expecting to go back to like a junior A team and dominate that year and try to work my way up. But fortunately, I was lucky enough that I had some people there at the time that saw some stuff in me, and saw the work ethic, saw the determination, and saw the size, and were willing to work with me. So from that point on, it was pretty much an upward climb. But again, I've had so many people in my back supporting me and pushing me, and again, keeping me motivated. Not to let things get me down. Just keep pushing, because this is what you love. So if you love it, do it. Like there's no real in between.
So now I want the listeners to understand the type of program that you got drafted to in Hull. So now I know that the years that you played for the team, you guys were pretty much the best team in junior hockey. What was the team like the year or two before you got there? Was it pretty much the same, or was it building up to that point?
No, Hull was always a really good organization. They always have been.
Powerhouse.
And back then, I would say it was arguably one of the best places to play in junior hockey.
Oh yeah.
I say that looking back. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't follow much junior before me, other than like my brother's friends who played for different teams like Laval. But I do know the year or two before I got there, when Laval was the dominant team in the Quebec League, it was Hull that they were beating in the finals. So the year I got there, or the year before I got there, was their really big. It was supposed to be their big push. They made a bunch of trades. They made they upgraded the roster. They had a bunch of like last year guys, and they lost in Game 7. So the year I got there it was supposed to be a rebuilding year. So we had 14 rookies that year.
Rebuilding year?
Yeah, we had 14 rookies that year, and our captain Sebastian Bordelot, his son now plays at Michigan. Him and a couple of our other veterans, Jamie Bird and Harold Hirsch, I can name them all. But they came out the gates and were like, we're not going backwards. And they pushed all of us young guys to try to compete and try to keep a standard high. We were lucky enough that we brought in some really talented first year guys that really filled out the roster, and we came out the gate flying. So the point when we got to Christmas was like, well, I guess we're challenging this year. So we made the big trade for Jose Theodore and a couple other guys.
Oh wow!
And even then we weren't supposed to win it. It was supposed to be Beauport or Quebec City, the Ramparts, whatever, and or Laval again. And we got Beauport in that first round, and we're like, we're going through y'all. We got a little bit of confidence off that, and we got Laval in the finals, and I think we beat them in 4, right? So it was a really magical year. All that ended at the Memorial Cup, and I think our first game playing against Kamloops and looking at their third line of Darcy Tucker, Shane Doan, and Jerome McGinley, it was like we're not in the same class. So it took us a couple of years to figure it out. By the third year, at that point we knew we were as good as anybody, but it was a steady climb there as well.
So and thank you for those stories. I love those stories. Mm-hmm. Your first year, so you get to Hull, best team in junior hockey, supposed to be a rebuilding year.
Yeah.
What were your billets like? Did you have the same billets all 3 years, or did you switch it up?
No, I switched it up a couple times. That first year, my billets, the first year I started, I remember I was rooming with a guy, Sean Farmer, from Calgary, and he was a 6'5" guy himself, and we had a defenseman. Yeah.
He played in the UK when I was over there.
He did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He did. That's why I love hockey. It's a small world, bro. It's a small world, bro. He was bigger. He wasn't. That wasn't necessarily his role, though.
I know.
But he's a great dude. But we were living with like a younger family, and they were really nice people, but they didn't understand what a Bill family was supposed to do. Right? They go out for the weekend and
you got one of those.
Leave us McCain lasagna for the two of us to split. It was like, well, we got to go. And then so we moved out of there, and I moved in with his family, Sylvain and Lena Faubert, and they were the greatest people in the world. Like, I absolutely loved them. I had a great time with them. We just really bonded. We had a really good relationship with each other. And then we wrestled at the end of the year, and I tore his ACL, and so I couldn't live with him the next year while he was recovering. But I ended up getting back with them my third year, my last year in Hull. I still talk to him this day. What was really funny is I was the first player they ever had, and the next 7 guys that went in that house were like Yuri Fisher, what's his name, captain in Philadelphia, Claude Giroux. The next 7 guys all made the NHL, and it was like, hey guys, you might want to start paying me some residuals here.
There you go. You set the tone, right?
I set the pipeline up for you guys, but
Yeah.
no, they're really good people, and they were very helpful, in just helping me, make my transition and helping me become, a player that could, play at the highest level.
Because, dude, we both know how important the billets are in junior.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Like I saw, like, it almost happened to me a couple times, but I saw some teammates that it really like messed them up, man. And like
100%.
they just couldn't rebound from like the bad experiences, and they ended up just not panning out. Right?
I mean, again, I think being at the rink is people don't realize is super stressful, right? Like every day you're at the rink, you're fighting for your life, right? Like you're fighting for your job.
Yeah.
You're like, there's somebody, they're waiting for somebody in the wings to take your spot. So when you're, 16 to 19 years old, 20 years old, and you're still trying to figure stuff out, you're trying to figure out your life, who you are, to go through that at the rink every day, and then come home and it just be stressful there as well. It could really, it really fucks with a lot of players. But I would say overall, I think the junior experience, traditionally, I mean, I think, 9 out of 10 families are great, and they're in it for the right reasons. But it's not always going to be perfect, and those ones, there were some guys who showed up that we thought were going to be studs, like you said, who ended up, straight up being duds, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but the billet life didn't necessarily help it. Yeah.
There you go. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had to ask about the billets just because it's such an important part. So this is going to be a little exciting for me because I'm a stat guy, Pete. Okay, I'm a stat guy, so you could probably guess what I'm going to be getting at.
I had some interesting stats in junior. Yeah.
From your first to your second year, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I just the one thing I want to point out is, well, first of all, okay, I'm the dude that when we got into the visitors room, I was the guy on the team that'd be the first guy to grab the stat pack. Okay, so that's me, right?
Yeah.
So, bro, I'm looking at your junior career. This is what I see. I see a gentleman that embraced the system. I see a gentleman that's incredibly coachable. And I see a gentleman that all the people that mattered on the team, the leaders, the brass, the coaches, they all believed in you and they liked you, Pete.
Yeah.
Because you improved so much every year. First to second might be a record.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Have you ever looked that up? Have you ever looked that up, like a point differential in one season?
No, I never really looked it up. I mean, but it was a really big jump. But again, I think a lot of it just happened that I had some trust in me. So like that first year, it was trying to catch up. So they believed in me, but they also, I wasn't ready. So I was lucky in the sense that Claude Julia was the assistant coach at the time, and he would take myself and Colin White and Gordy Dwyer and every day after every practice, Sean Farmer as well, and those are the guys that he was working with every day, working on every aspect of the game, from crossovers to shot, quick releases to fisticuffs, right? So he took a huge, I don't want to say gamble, but he took a huge part in all of our developments. I was lucky enough, even with, I was playing like 5 minutes a game that year, and, just getting spotted in here and there. And, I was fine with it. I was happy with it. I was getting to play in the best league in the world. Exactly. Right. So, I was lucky enough. I got drafted that year, even with those kind of numbers. And, when I came back the next year, they gave me an opportunity to work up with the guys on the first line, and I don't think it was they were expecting it was gonna last. I think it was more because they were waiting for some guys to come back from camp. But it clicked right off the bat. We brought in this kid from Czech Republic, Pavel Rosa, who's just unbelievable skill guy. And I was able to create some room for him. And I was smart enough to go to the net with my stick down. And, early on, there was a lot of pucks that were bouncing off my kneecap and whatever. But it gave me more confidence. It gave us a kind of an identity, right? Like we can play some skill with you, but we're not a team to be fucked with, right? Like Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'll lead that. I'm at the head of the spear on that, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't like if you went after Rose or my centerman Martin Manal that you had to wait a couple shifts for somebody to come at you. No, I
Right
was right in
there.
your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So I mean that those things weren't necessarily going to happen, right? So it created an opportunity for those guys to play more free
Yeah.
and not really, because they weren't the biggest guys, so they didn't have to worry about, some of the stuff like Danny Briere or other guys, who were that type of players at that time had to deal with. Um, and the more confident I got, I got back to being the player I was growing up. I was the goal scorer. I was the guy that could do that. Anything in the slot, it was going the back of the net. I had good hand-eye coordination. So it allowed me to be kind of the player I wanted to be. I grew up in Montreal with all the guys I grew up with. We always fought every year to get that number 8 number. We always wanted to be Cam Neely, right? So.
Awesome.
To kind of be able to play that kind of similar role, not quite, but a similar type of role, it was really cool and it was really exciting. It was some really good times, and obviously we won a lot of games. So I mean, it was effective.
It definitely was effective. Now, I want to add to the confidence subject.
Mhm.
Now, okay, so you're 18 years old, Pete. You're
Yeah.
finishing your first year in junior.
Mhm.
Feel good about yourself. You're not a rookie anymore. You're a
Yeah.
veteran now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're rated for the NHL draft.
Mhm.
First of all, where was the draft?
I was in Edmonton. It was in
Were
Edmonton.
you allowed to go? Did you go?
I was allowed to go. I was not going. I
Okay.
was not going to go. No.
I wasn't allowed to go to mine. That's why, because I was
Oh,
rated
really?
in I was rated in like the 9th round or something.
Okay.
And my agent was Mike Gillis, and he had this
Okay.
rule: unless you're rated in the first couple rounds, you ain't going.
Oh,
You
really?
ain't
No.
sitting there not getting called and pouting all night, right?
So yeah, so for me, it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to go. It was more I was rated I think in the 5th round. Without
Okay, so you
goaltenders,
were
I was rated to go
decent
later.
rating.
Decent rating, but that was without goaltenders. That was without Europeans.
That's
So
right,
like,
North America, yeah.
so it was like a crapshoot whether I was going to go or not, right? It was Doiger was supposed to go in the 1st round, so like he was trying to get me to go, and I was like, I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not going there to sit in the stands just to cheer you on, right?
Yeah,
So
to might not get picked.
yeah, just so I could be that really big tall guy that I could look like your bouncer. Like that's just I'm not. It's not how it's gonna go for me. So
Yeah.
myself, the Stocks, another guy, Jason Birmingham, that played minor leagues for a long time, and one of our good friends. And I think we went to like a Chi-Chi's restaurant and watched the whole draft. And we had it all planned out. Doiger was going to give us a call if any of our names got called. That never happened. Yeah, I think he got drafted. It was like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Doig's World, right?
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
So so all of us, I think, kind of went home that night and just were kind of like, bummed. And I remember vividly, like I woke up the next morning, and my dad kind of like up jumping up for joy and was like, "Hey, Pete, your name's here, And I was like, "Great, whatever." Rolled back to bed. I was like, "It's too early for this." I went back to sleep, and I woke up a couple of hours later. I think it was like 10 o'clock, whatever, and went to go to the bathroom, grabbed the new sports page because like that's what what we used to do back in the day, and just leafing through, just trying to see where my teammates went, trying to see if any of my friends got drafted, and 7th round, 166, Peter Worrell from the Hull Olympics. And I was like, oh, holy shit, let's go. Doiger, what the fuck? But it was it was a really good moment. And then I think later that day, Hull called me, or not Hull, the Panthers called me, and I guess they had been trying to call me from the day before, but I guess they somehow got some wrong numbers, so they kept calling some little lady over and over again, and kept getting cussed out by her. So
who was the GM at that time, Pete?
It was Brian Murray. It was
Okay.
Brian Murray. Yeah. So his nephew Tim ended up being the GM in Buffalo, pounded the table for me. So they're from Pembroke. You know, I guess they both saw a little bit of themselves in me, and you know, they were very big supporters of me from day one. You know, and in all honesty, like I don't know if I make the NHL if it wasn't for Brian Murray. Brian was a huge believer in me. He talked a lot with Charlie Henry, who was the GM in Hull at the time, who was again another really big supporter for me, and they just had to believe that I could do it. You know, even though you know, I think I came out of the first camp, I was about 30 pounds overweight. They couldn't get me out of there quick enough. You know, but by the next year they saw the work, and they saw what I was doing in Hull, and you know, they brought me up for playoffs. They were fully behind me. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed that I was able to be a Florida Panther draft pick in '95. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But Pete, like you gotta get, like, I know you're a very humble guy, man. You're I love that about you.
Now I am. Now I am. Oh, I was cocky as hell back then.
You had to be. The King's got to be cocky,
yeah,
but dude, I mean, okay, so we teased the listeners a little bit with, hey, is that a record and this and that? Yeah. So your first year in Hull, you have a solid year, and you have a solid year because not only did you get, you know, you got 10 points. You played most of the season. You were able to get through the season. You're able to establish yourself as a heavyweight in the league. Like, that's a lot. People don't understand that 16, 17-year-old kids are doing a man's job, and they're a teenager, and then they're kissing a girl in front of their locker in high school, right? But then they're fighting in front of 6,000 people that night, you know, it's center ice. Like, it's crazy. Now that you think of it, don't you think it's crazy what we did at that age?
Absolutely. No, it was again, like when you're in the middle of it, you're just in the middle of it. You don't really think about it. You just kind of just go. But yeah, once you take a step back and look back at it, you know, I'm a old guy now, and it's like, damn, like I mean, again, I coach 16-year-olds now, and to imagine one of my 16-year-olds having to do some of the stuff that we had to do.
Different world, buddy.
Just a different world, right? Just the you know, not only just from the way the game's played, but from the way you're coached to the way that
chirping, everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just so much different. So yeah, what goes on in the junior world, it certainly toughens you, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And that first year there was a lot of really good stories, a lot of really good things. You know, but to this day, you know, anytime I see Jose Theodore, the first thing he'll say is like, "Hey man, Pete, love you, brother. Remember I outscored you that rookie year." I'm like, yeah. That's true.
Wait, you got 2 goals? You had a goal, didn't you?
No. He had more points. He had
more points.
Yeah.
He had 11 points.
He had 11 points that year. So it was he could shoot the puck back then. So basically, he just threw the puck to center ice, and we get a breakaway on our power play, and you get the point.
Second assist, yeah.
Correct, right? But yeah, he likes to bring that up, and I always like to remind him that he probably wouldn't have got through that year if it wasn't for me. So
exactly. So okay, so now this is back to the confidence. You go to your first camp. Yeah, you might have been overweight, dude, but you're still at an NHL camp, and that had to do a lot for the confidence.
Correct.
Now you go back. Yeah. So now you go back to Hull.
Yeah.
As a veteran, you walk in there, they're giving you the left side on the first line. Yeah. Right? You've just been skating with guys that are even better than the 2 guys 100%. On the first line here, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So now you're fitting in, man. The confidence must have just been just shooting through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. No. I came back that second year. Once I guess probably the first month, head coach at the time kicked the shit out of me just to get me back in shape, right? To get back to where I was. You know, I didn't realize what it took. You know, that's that first year. I never made that mistake again. But you know, once I was given that opportunity and we had success. Yeah, I know. I fully felt I can do this. Like I went in every game I played thinking I'm the baddest motherfucker on this ice.
Yeah, but you were though.
But I meant in terms of I'm not in fighting necessarily or being the physical presence, but like
I'm talking about the game, brother.
You put the puck on my stick.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're gonna make something happen, right? Like I want the puck on my stick. I want to be on the ice in those important minutes. I think I can. I know I can be a difference maker anytime I played. So yeah, I mean that certainly wasn't how I felt the first year. First year I was just trying to get through it. But no, from that second year on, I felt super confident. Coming back to that third year, I made the team in Florida. I broke my hand the last day of camp, or else I wasn't. Yeah, or else I wasn't coming back. So, I came back and I was expecting to be the captain, and they gave it away at the time, and it was like, all right, whatever, no problem. It's still my team. But yeah, I mean, I came back that last year even more confident. Like, all right, I'm back. Let's settle some scores. Let's finish this job. We haven't got to over the mountain yet. We're gonna do it this year. So I believe I was a really big part of that team and our success that year. And all of it came from the confidence that I had gained over those first 3 years.
So now and thanks for sharing that, buddy. Now I look at these numbers and I'm just kind of like, okay, so this guy had over a point per game his last year. He had a point per game his second year. He had a 50-point difference from his first to his second year. 9 points to 59 points, a 60-point season. So that's a top forward on any team.
Yep.
So now these top forwards on these teams, they get these 60 points. They're on the power play. They might kill some penalties. They might throw a hit once in a while. But pretty much what they're there for is to get the 60 points. Dude, you had the 60 points. You had 464 penalty minutes. Yeah. You had 464 penalty minutes. What comes with that? That comes a responsibility. That comes the responsibility of fighting the toughest guy on the other team. It comes with the responsibility of every single guy wants a piece of Mr. Big Pete Worrell. Every single guy. People don't realize that. So you did what a top forward did, and then you terrorized the league and backed it up to add some to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I think some of it goes hand in hand. But I mean, look, if I probably only had 220 minutes, I probably had a 90-point season, right? Like it was when you're getting 400 and something minutes like that, you're getting 5-10 minutes a game, right? And there were, there wasn't a lot of, there weren't a lot of like 10-minute misconducts in those years. Like for me, there wasn't a lot of, 2-minute tripping penalties. It was, I was getting it the hard way.
Everybody was coming for you, bro. Everybody.
Yeah. I think after my second year or during my second year was when it was really established that like, it's either Pete or it's George. Right. And we had our battles, whatever, but I think we were on a different level from everybody. And, everybody was trying to come at one of us. Right. And for whatever reason, I think part of it was that we were so good, back in the Quebec League rules too, your second fight, you're out of the game. So, you get that second fight with about 3 minutes left. All right, I'll see you guys later. We got this job done. We're up by 10. Like, what do we got to be here for, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I literally fought everybody. There's not a guy that played, and there was a murderer's row in the queue at the time, right? So
I know.
There was the Patrick Cotes, the Jody Shelleys, I remember the year that you were talking about me having 460. I don't think I was even third in the league. Top 3 in the league.
You were fifth. You were fifth in the league that year, but then you led the league the next year with your 495.
Yeah,
495.
That's great, but the year that I finished the fifth was, I think Joel Terrio had like 700. So it was
animal.
Yeah, we had some really, really tough guys in the league back then, and when I got in the NHL, it was mainly all the guys from the queue that were in the NHL as the tough guys, right? So, it was a tough challenge every game. It was fun. I felt pretty confident pretty much in every fight I ever got in, other than with Big George. But yeah, I mean, it was. a lot of adrenaline going through those days. It was a lot of fun. Anytime I stepped on the ice, I knew there was something that was going to happen. It was either going to be a fight, it was going to be a big hit, there was going to be a goal, it was going to be a nice play. It was a real fun way to play.
So you're officially 6'7", right, Pete?
Correct. Yeah, 6'7", 3/4.
Oh, really? Okay,
I was. I'm back down to Bobby about 6'7".
We all shrink a little bit.
Yeah,
When did you get to 6'7"? Like when? How? Like what age was that? Like were you 6'7" your first year junior?
No, I came in at 6'5", I think.
6'5".
6'5", or something like that. So I put on another inch and a half. But like I said, I never had a growth spurt. So I was always the tall kid. I was a kid that make sure you bring your birth certificate because it was going to get challenged every night. I was just tall. My dad's 6 foot, my mom was 5'2". I think
that was my next question.
Yeah, I think we had a tall mailman, but I was just that.
What about your bro? What about your older brother?
My brother is 7 years older than me. He is 5'10". Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I got the size. He got the looks and the personality. So it worked out. He's doing okay for himself. He's got a good life.
I know, like I have a brother that's 7'2", plays professional basketball. So I know that the size could vary in the families. Me and my other brother are closer to 6'4".
Okay.
But man, that's cool though. So this is interesting now, Pete.
Yeah.
So your older brother, you said he's 5 years or 7 years older?
7. 7
Okay,
years.
so do you believe, because I found this out with a lot of my guests, do you believe that your brother had an impact on your toughness because he was so much older and he would just be beating you up when you're younger and you just developed this?
To a degree, yes. Like when we were much younger, when I was much younger, yes, he absolutely did.
I could feel the sibling rivalry right now.
Well, again, like so, my brother was fly. My brother was, he was drip way back in the day, right? Oh, for way back, right? So him, my cousin, they were always them dudes. So. I'd always try to like take his clothes and wear them to school, whatever. Like we were at different schools, and I was a dumb jock, and I'd come back and have grass stains on it, and he'd smack the shit out of me, like whatever.
Okay.
Then I turned 12. Those days stopped.
Because you became bigger.
Yeah, the size differential changes, right? So again, like my brother's was a really good soccer player, and that's his first passion. When he played hockey and he's a pretty good player.
How old did he play till?
I think as soon as he started getting contact, he was like, all right, that's I'm gonna play left back. Yeah, I'm gonna play left back in soccer. Yeah, I'll leave that to you cats. So I would say it wasn't necessarily my brother, but it was my whole family, right? So like I said, my brother, my cousin's like about 5 years older than me. Again, he was the hockey star, so yeah, they would smack the shit out of me.
And he had the swag too, like your brother?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Dwayne the Train. He had the
Train.
He had the he either had the Kumo D or not Kumo D. He always had the Rakim high top or.
So he's an OG, eh?
Oh yeah, no, he was leading the dance troops. No, he was. Dwayne was all. He had all the girls. That's who we all wanted to be. Put it that way. But no, my brother. It's funny. It's funny how the world works. Like my brother left hockey to go play soccer, and I was a little brother that was always being brought around and hung around. And I remember the one year. I think when the A team was really big, right? I decided I was going to give myself a mohawk to be like Mr. T, right? And I messed it up royally. And my mom was like, "Well, you're going to walk around like that? I ain't fixing it." Right? So I remember the first day I went to go watch my brother's game, and he had he had a bunch of guys that were just given to me, right? And one of them was this guy Robert Haddock, and another black guy ended up playing like in the minor leagues, whatever. Had a good career, and his goalie was Enrico Ciccone. So ended up being an NHL pro fighter as well, and I guess he's a member of Parliament in Canada now. But oh yeah, they teased me mercilessly, right? And just to this day they still give it to me. So it's there was a lot of people. Oh, there was a lot of people that played in that, and just to go off that. I know I'm kind of rambling, but I remember
it's great. It's great, bro.
One of my first games, I think we were playing Tampa, and Ciccone was on that team, and he was their tough guy. And we were going up to him face off. I'm like, you remember that Mr. T haircut, right? And he just kind of looked at me like, oh shit. And we got a little bit of payback, but it was. I have a long memory.
Yeah. Hey, Pete. So, okay. So now, obviously, the Florida Panthers, they draft this player, this huge player with all this potential. What was it? Was it the 6th or the 7th round? 7th round.
7th round. Yeah.
But now they got this guy that's a point per game, beating everybody up. Obviously, they knew that you were eventually going to be the guy. But did you think you were going to play 20 games your first year pro? Like that's incredible, man.
No, I did. I mean, personally, I did. I just I was a little disappointed when I got sent down early. Especially again, I pretty much made the team the year before. So when I didn't make it right off the camp, right out of training camp, I was mad, but I was 20 years old, and we had a really good bunch of guys there. We had a lot of fun together in New Haven, and I just felt that once I got a shot that I do well, So I got called up, against the Devils for my first game, and played a pretty good game up there, and I just thought, all right, I'm going to be here. This is me, and we lost. They fired the coach that night, and I got sent back, 2 games later, right? So I was like, all right, okay. Well, next time I go up, they're not sending me back down. So that second stint I got up, I was gonna do everything impossible. I was gonna go through everybody. We had Paul Laws on the team that was, my big brother, and he's tough as nails, one of the toughest guys ever, but
killer
guy that loved to fight. Like he loved to fight. I at that point I was just like, look, man, like I'm staying. So get ready. Your workload's going to get a little lighter. And I went after everyone. I think I had like 150 minutes that year. Just trying to establish who I could be, and
153 to be exact in 19 games.
I told you it was
That's
something
an 80
ridiculous.
game season.
That's ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, by that second year I came back, I knew I was going to be an NHL, right? So it was, again, I was very fortunate in the situations I was with, the people I was with, but again, part of it was just the belief in myself that if I do the right things, if I act the right way, and I play hard as I can, I'm better than this. I can do this. I can be here, and I want to. My goal was to try to get back to the kid I was in junior, right? Yeah. And being that guy that was able to do both. Unfortunately, that wasn't necessarily what I was able to do in the NHL, but that was always my mentality every game I played in the NHL, though, right? Like, how do I make sure that I'm doing my job? How to make sure that I know every position, everything everybody's supposed to do. So like everything's comes to me quick. How can I make sure that I want to be the best forechecker in the league? I want to be, that guy that goes in net every time and does the right things. And if I do that, I know I'll start getting some minutes, and it just, for whatever reasons, I know, when I got to Colorado, that was supposed to be the role that they wanted for me as well. And then I blew my knee out day one. So it just never kind of came to fruition. But, that was always the goal. And along the way, I did a little bit of fisticuffs, and I did pretty good.
You did really good. Now, you did prove on the pro level that you were that guy, though, because brother, your first year in New Haven,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like you're throwing up 30 points in 50 games in the
Yep.
AHL as a 20-year-old. Like that's
Yep.
impressive. That's what the first, second rounders were doing in Rochester when it was my first year pro,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah.
did really well, Pete. Like you played well. You put the puck in the net, man.
Well, that's
Right?
kind of why I felt confident I'd get back up, right? Like
Yeah.
I knew I could play.
Yeah.
It was also I think that was I remember scoring a hat trick that year against Jose Theodore, and it was like, yeah, remember all those
Oh yeah.
how you
Remember
outscored me.
that.
So it was again, I have a long memory. I always had a long memory about stuff like that. But yeah, I know it was again. We had a really good time in New Haven. We had some really good. I played with some really good guys. I was primarily with Ryan Johnson and David Nemirovsky and Scarborough boy, I think Nemo,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, we worked really well together. We had our second unit or first or A1 unit, I guess, was Byron Ritchie and Shane Willis and a couple guys. So we had some really good players. We were really young, and we weren't able to make that same magic as my first year in Hull of a really young team and overachieving. But it was a good time. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it a lot better by getting out of there and getting to Florida.
So, Big Pete, one gentleman that I did have on the show was Mr. Bob Langdon. Now, this guy is a former NHL referee. He's from Woodstock, Ontario, and he runs like the minor hockey league program there with his
awesome.
family.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but obviously, he loves the fact that he had the experience of being an NHL ref, and his most memorable moment in the NHL was officiating a game where it was George Laraque against Peter Worrell. That was the main event anyway. And I think you guys started the game, and he was just explaining the buildup of the fight, the honor, the respect you guys had for each other, right? And I just kind of want to get into, before we move on to another segment, is the respect factor of the Warriors back in the day. Some you must have had a lot for. Others you probably didn't like too much. That was my case. But with you and George's coming up through the ranks, what was it like always being compared to Big George?
It was fine. I mean, again, I always liked George. I think after our first year in junior, we met up a couple times during the summer and just kind of just chopped it up and hung out, and we had a mutual respect for each other. I think we both understood we kind of did the same thing. I think we both kind of had that same mentality that we wanted to be better than the other in that aspect, but it was never anything personal. It was just our natural pride, right? Like if I got in a fight, I wanted to win. I wanted to beat you. I wanted to show that I was better than you. And he was very much the same thing. And we were just two different styles of fighters too, right? George was a monster. I mean, we both were, but George was, wanted to overpower you and try to physically dominate you. Where I had quicker hands, I had longer reach. I thought a little bit more out there. So we just had contrasting styles. And by the time we got to the pros, like we were pretty much fairly even. But I also knew not to get him mad. So I try to keep him on a happy note, just keep it professional. But we had a lot of wars, again, from my second year junior, where, we were on the rival teams against each other, and he basically got traded to try to eliminate me from what I was doing. And, all the way through our NHL careers, we kind of mirrored each other. Our contracts came up the same time, and, it was always, what Worrell do, what Laraque do. Those were our comparables every year, until George signed a big contract, and it was like, no, you guys aren't comparable. But no, we had a really good time with him, and Again, both, I think anytime we fought, we were both trying to win, certainly, but it was never anything of, anger or trying to get that lucky one on them. It was just, we were going to do whatever happened that night and move on. And then probably go have a beer afterwards. It was never personal. Some other guys, oh no, I was going to try to knock their blocks off. But George is always a good guy. And like I said, we always had good respect for each other.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Pete, you guys had a really, really, really big impact on the game, because what started out as pure kind of enforcers at the NHL level kind of transformed into kind of like the new kind of power forward for a time in the NHL, because you were a very good hockey player, but your skating improved so much, Pete, on the NHL level every year. So like your first year to your fifth year was like night and day. And I think you kind of created, as did George, because he got better as well. You guys created a new type of monster in the NHL.
I think in some ways, yeah. I mean, I think you're, maybe give me more credit than I wanted to, but no, I mean, obviously I worked very hard at trying to improve my game. I think one of the things for me, and I think it's kind of what made it easier for me, I think, during my career. I hear a lot of the stories of guys who, were stressed out about, whenever guys are coming town or teams are coming town and worrying about the next guy. I never did. I was always worrying about what I can do to get another shift. I was worrying about making sure that I knew what my role was, what the system was, what the other team was trying to do, so I could play. I looked at myself more as like you said, like a power forward, a pass. I wanted to be one of the best forward checkers in the league. I wanted to turn it over. I wanted to create offense. But I knew that if things jumped off, like, I'm that guy. I can do it, but I think it kind of helped me in that way where I didn't get stuck thinking that way. And it made me at every practice try to work on different things, work on power play, work on PK, work on faceoffs, even when I knew I wasn't going to play it. But I was trying to create that space that if I continue to improve, continue to get better, maybe not with this team, but maybe the next team are going to see something with me. And when I got traded in Colorado, that was kind of the role that I was expected to try to take. And unfortunately, things didn't work out. My knee blew up on day one, but that was always my mentality. And speaking from the outside, I know George was very much the same thing. Like, we both believe we can do the role. We both believe that we were good in the role, but we didn't want to be stuck in the role or pigeonholed in the role. We wanted to be hockey players first and foremost. And fighters as part of our repertoire, I guess.
Yes, and that's incredible. I really appreciate you sharing that, Pete. Now, to add to that, for our next topic, there comes a time in everyone's career where their role on the team changes, and you being like at this time like a super vet, and a super vet in the sense of games played and years in, right?
Yeah.
You having this now on your resume, and then and like I look at it as an opportunity. When I saw that you played for the Charlotte Checkers, how I looked at it was, when I first looked at it, Pete, this is what I thought. I'm like, well, I know he got into coaching. I know he does a lot of mentoring and coaching now. I bet you that was kind of like a player coach type situation. Like, that was my first thought right off the hop. Then I read whatever Wikipedia says about, signing with the Rangers, that's fine and dandy. You're playing professional hockey in North Carolina, right? Pretty cool stuff, man, where the Charlotte Hornets are at, and Michael Jordan, right?
If I was gonna be the Miners, there wasn't a better place to be. Like, I really enjoyed my time in Charlotte. People were great. It was a big time city. It was a lot of fun, and we had a good group of guys, a good coach, Derek Wilkinson. I think, the mentality that I had when I first got there was, I was working to try to get back up, and it just never, my body just never felt right. My knee was messed up. It never really recovered. I was in pain all the time. I had an opportunity to get called up, and I kind of just told him, just leave me there, give it to somebody that can make the most of it. And then I guess in my head, my mentality kind of switched a little bit from being, I want to, focus on trying to get back to, all right, let me make the most of my situation here. Let me help these young guys or younger guys, and just try to, leave a mark in some ways. Right. So I think, just playing there, I mean, I had so much fun. I had a really good time. Like,
you did well.
I did well. And, what was fun for me was, it was the first time probably since youth hockey where they let me be, the player I wanted to be. Right. So, I was taking every big face off. I don't think I took a face off since I was like 12.
You were playing center, Pete?
No, I was a winger, but every big face off.
You were taking the draws?
Absolutely. I was killing penalties. I was, first unit power play. I was last minute offensively or defensively.
Pete, I wouldn't want to move you in front of the net, man. I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, it was a really hard move. It was a big body, like you're putting work in.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But it was a really good experience, and honestly, like there was a time, I think midway through the year, where we started struggling a little bit in different aspects of the game, right? Like, our PK wasn't working that well, our power play wasn't working that well. I think like our neutral zone system was kind of all over the place. Like we were doing too many things. There was no consistency.
Yeah.
And I think, Wilkie was willing to allow me to impart, I guess, some of the things I learned. I mean, I guess one of the good things about playing with the Panthers at the time, and we were terrible, was that we had a lot of coaches. And, we learned a lot of different systems, a lot of different ways to do things. And, I started trying to, do a little bit of that. I wasn't really thinking about it as, the next step, but, I was, try to help them out with, a different in zone system, things that like we used to do with Pav, or things that we even did in Colorado with Joey and Pete and Paul and Timu and those guys. Try to, work on a neutral zone system that can maximize, the type of system or type of players that we had at the time. And almost kind of get more in line with what the Rangers were doing up at the NHL level. So, I think it became kind of natural, and it kind of just flowed into, once I got back home and decided I was going to hang him up, and, never thinking about being a coach or anything of that nature. And it just kind of happening and having, a blast with it the first year, and getting more and more involved, and getting to the point where I am at now, where, I'm running the whole program.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to kind of to dive into that. What I'm curious about, and I know a lot of the listeners, especially because we just released his episode last week, Pete, Big Steve McIntyre, Big Mac, okay?
Yeah.
Now, this guy, at the time that you played with him in Charlotte, he wasn't really that well known at the pro level. He was known as a killer in junior, but at the pro level, he hadn't really established himself on the playing part anyway, right? It wasn't until a couple years later. Now, when you saw this big specimen of a farmer boy man, when you saw this guy, what were you thinking? Were you thinking that, man, this guy's just so tough that eventually he's going to make it? Or like what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's part of it. Part of it, I wanted to see if I could power bomb him. Big wrestling fan,
wrestling guy.
Yeah, so I wanted to see if I could do that. So I made sure to do that to him a couple times, which caught him off guard. He was like, "How the hell are you doing that?" I'm like, "I have to, just have to."
That's hilarious.
But no, I mean, No, Mac, when I first got there, he was a big, strong guy. He was, obviously, 6'7", 6'8", 250 or something of that nature. But he hadn't really found it, so it was, trying to teach him, not through, just through osmosis a little bit, like, you're the big bad guy on the block. Like, you don't have to be talking to anybody. You don't have to do any of that stuff. But like, when it comes down to it, just let people know, like, some stuff aren't going to be tolerated, right? And you'll give yourself more room. You'll give yourself more space, and can be more effective. And I think through that year, he started to get a little bit better. But I think he got a little discouraged, I think, at the end of that year. And I remember talking to him at the end of the year, and he was, going to go into a car dealership, and he was going to give it up. And, I told him, just stick with it. I mean, you don't have many chances to go back. So like, until they don't want to pay anymore, you might as well, give it a go. Next thing I know, he'd worked his way up and got himself into the NHL. So, he worked hard. Somebody that improved. The player that he was once he got to the NHL level was a lot different than the kid I knew in Charlotte. But I mean, again, it was progression. And, he's a kid that, made a career when I don't think a lot of other people saw that in him. He had the belief in himself, and, he listened, he learned. He was a good, for lack of a better term, a student. And he used everything that he learned from a lot of guys, myself. I think he played with Dale Purinton for a little bit as well. And,
Yep.
Just learning from those guys, how to be an idiot, I guess, in some ways, and, a controlled idiot, I guess. And, he made himself, a good career and made himself a whole lot more money. So I'm extremely proud of him. And, I was excited when he got his first call up, and to think that he played, a good amount of games. I mean, that's fantastic. That's odd. That was unbelievable. For him that he's an NHL alumni, and he earned every minute of it.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, and like, obviously, how nice of a guy Big Mac is.
Right? Oh yeah,
and like,
oh absolutely.
A lot of people, like, I mean, like, I know, like, you hear, like, Don Cherry and everyone says, oh, tough guys are the nicest guys, and you hear that, but there's not a lot of tough guy talk anymore compared to what there used to be in the game, right? So you don't hear it as much, right? Yeah. And people tend to forget how big of teddy bears some of us can be. And with Big Mac,
some of us, not all of us,
not all of us, some of us. But with Big Mac,
oh no, he was an absolute teddy bear. Like when I first got him, no, he was an absolute teddy bear in every aspect of it. But again, he was a great teammate. He worked his tail off, and he was always there to support a guy. But again, to be in that role, I think it's great that you're teddy bears, because it gives you something once you leave the ice. I've always said it was a great therapy for me.
Yeah.
I mean, if I got frustrated in real life, I can go up there and punch somebody in the head. I mean,
yeah,
it's not necessarily recommended, but I think it worked. But like to be able to get off the ice and to let that persona go, I think it was always very important. And there's it's a lot of guys in our role. I think we all had aspirations to be a certain type of guy, a certain type of player, and do things. I think most of us were really good players in our youth hockey and whatnot. And you get to a certain level, and it's like, well, I can either try to keep being that guy and not go anywhere, or take this role and keep advancing. So I think in the back of our minds, we're always I don't think there was many guys that say that grew up from 8 years old being a meathead, right? Like it was a learned process, right? But no, I think guys like guys like Mac, guys like Big George, I can go down the list of just really good guys. Thordy over here, I can go up and down the list. I mean, there was a lot of really good guys. PJ Stock, I mean, there was a lot of really good guys who did that role. And I think for the most part, most of us really enjoyed hanging out with each other. We would see each other. I think we all of us had respect for each other. We understood what the other guy was going through.
Yep.
So it was a pretty cool community. The game's changed, and our role is not really there anymore. And it's really not there anymore because of they took it away in youth hockey, they took it away in junior hockey.
Yeah.
So like kids, by the time someone gets to the NHL, that's not the time to learn how to be a fighter. Like it's just not, right? So
yeah.
So it just changed the way that the game is and how things are set up and whatnot. But unfortunately, that's progress, right? And in some ways, it's certainly frustrating. It's there's times where you watch games on the ice, you're like, but for the most part, I mean, I'll be honest. I think the game's in a great place. I love the fact that you look at a guy like Tate Thompson, who, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they would have tried to turn him into something else. And in this world, they let him be a player. And dude's phenomenal.
Yeah.
6'7", 240 power forward who could score. I mean,
yeah.
He gets to live the dream that all of us did, right? So,
yeah.
it's to me, it's a good thing. It's a good progression. But certainly, there's moments where like I just want to get on the horn and call Paul Oz and be like, man, do you see that? I get that, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, just because we're on it, I'm sure you heard the news report about the Quebec government and what they said to the Quebec Major Junior League. Did you hear about this?
I have not. Oh,
They're
no.
giving a lot of pressure. The Quebec government, I guess, put out a statement last week. It was like at the end of the week, like Thursday or Friday. So it's only been a couple of days in the news cycle. But apparently the Quebec government is telling the Quebec Major Junior League that they must ban fighting or they're going to be given it like repercussions or something, the way they worded it. I don't know if the translation was correct, but yeah, they want a ban on the major junior level in Quebec, right? And I don't know, man, if that is the answer to like people's ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a step too far. I mean, I kind of understand what they're thinking. Because again, I think as an older guy now, I could look back and be like, we're sometimes you're putting in situations a 16-year-old kid would fight a 19-year-old guy, and that's tough, and
very tough. A 21-year-old guy sometimes.
Correct. Yeah.
Depending on when his birthday was, right?
100%. Right.
Yeah.
And that's, and anywhere else in the world, that's abuse. In hockey, that's just suck it up. Right. So, I mean, I get that. I get that. I get the fact that we know a little bit more now about traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that. You don't want to see kids get into that situations. I get that. But I do think it's a little bit of a bridge too far. I mean, I think the way the rules are right now, and again, I don't watch a lot of Quebec League games. I watch a lot of NHL and whatnot.
And Florida minor hockey games.
Correct, right? So I mean, like fighting's not really something that happens that much. It's more of a, an unnatural thing that happens now. It happens every once in a while.
Unless you're on the Nashville Predators.
Unless you're in the Nashville Predators. Yeah, they seem to have a few this year. But even then, I mean,
it's nothing compared to what it was. Nothing.
No, I think I might have had more in that one year than they have as
their team has
right?
this year.
So I mean, So I mean, it's totally different in that way. And honestly, like I think getting back to where fighting is more of a reactionary thing as opposed to, hey, let's set it up, weeks in advance and I think it's that's kind of where you want it to be. Like I don't think you want to take that tool out of their toolbox. Because again, I do fear, and whether people admit it or not, I do fear, the raising of the rats a little bit, and guys having no fear and doing whatever they want to guys on the ice, right? And you see in the NHL where there's guys who
But look at lately, like I love Evgeny Malcolm, but I mean, would he do that if dude's tough guy was on his line and he would just get his head knocked off for just I don't think he would. I don't think
I don't think he would.
Matthews would have cross-checked that Buffalo guy in the outdoor game either.
I don't think so. The other flip side of that, those guys probably aren't starting with those guys either. So it changes a little bit. But like Brad Marchand licking guys and doing stuff like that. I mean, like that's all that type of stuff. Like that's not what would have. That just wouldn't jive with the way the world was back then, right? So
yeah.
I think a lot of that is, guys don't fear the repercussions. Obviously, getting dinged in the pocketbook sucks. But they don't really realize that until they retire.
Exactly.
When you're
playing at the time, it's not a big deal.
Oh, when it's when you get suspended or you get fined, it's $5,000. What is that to an NHL player? That's not even a weekly.
It's taking a couple of the boys out for dinner.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, taking that out, I think is not great. The fact that they've spent the last 15 to 20 years, I would say,
grandfathering it out
and grandfathering it out and putting rules in where it gets out, basically through osmosis. I think they're on the right path. I mean, again, like you watch a game, a kid can have 3 fights for a season and before he gets suspended. I mean, okay. I mean, do I love it? No, but
exactly.
I get it, and it is what it is. And it's creating a world where they're not fighters, and that's okay. I mean, it's like I said, it's the way of the world. I mean, like we can sit back and fight it and bang our head against the wall and wish it was the way it used to be, but that's not how life works. So I mean, let's try to take advantage of where it is now. But I mean, like, the way they do it in the Ontario League, the way they do it in the Dub, I think is makes more sense to me. And I think by continuing with that pattern, realistically, you're going to get away from it anyways. I mean, the way the rosters are constructed now, where you want 4 lines who can go. I mean, that in and of itself has taken away the need for fighting that much. So I mean, I think, just like, as a proud Quebecer, our government does a lot of stuff to be splashy and to make noise. A lot of times it's stupid. But there's a lot of politicians that make pronouncements and stuff of that nature, and they're not really well thought of.
Exactly.
They don't really talk to the stakeholders and see, what could be best. I mean, I think if they did, I think they would see that they probably have a lot of things in common and in belief, just probably not in the way that they would want to, have it in practice.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things I want to add to what you said. The first thing, when we were talking about the way it used to be with the tough guys and the honor and understanding what other guys had to go through. So I just wanted to comment on that. My favorite honor thing as a tough guy when I played was this right here, Pete. You tell me what you thought about it. Let's say, like, I played for Rochester Americans 4 straight seasons. So the Syracuse Crunch were like my all-time rival, like most of my career, right? Yeah. So I'm in Rochester, and Brandon Sugden gives me a fight when we're losing 2-0. He gives me a fight in Rochester. So we fight, whatever, we come back, tie it. It's great for me. Yeah. When we get to Syracuse in warm-up, he's going to say to me, McMorrow, I gave you that fight. You have to give me one tonight. You have to. You promised that you would, if I gave that to you, that you would get me back. I did that with guys all the time. Did you?
Yeah. I mean, not as clear cut dry like that, but I think it was just more of, hey man, we did it once. Let's get it over again. Obviously when, like you said, like, especially when if it's such a momentum changer. Yeah. And it was somebody that you respected, obviously. Yeah, you would. Same token, if it was some, if I'm not going to name a name right now, it almost came out of my mouth, but if it was something that you didn't respect, it'd be like, well, too bad. Go fuck yourself. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
what do I care? Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to point that out because when you were talking about that, man, that's the first thing that popped up, man. I loved it when guys would just honor that code, that if they owed you one, they had to give you one. And I loved it.
So yeah, sorry. No, I was going to say, for me, it wasn't necessarily, I don't think it was necessarily as much as the code as it's just about karma, right? Like,
yeah,
do things for guys like how you would want them to do for you. So that's like, it wasn't, the code was never anything that made me stop like punching a guy. I stopped punching a guy because if I had him in a bad position, I always envisioned myself being on the other end of it. And I would want that guy to take it easy on me, right? If I saw a guy at the end of a shift, you know, I don't want to necessarily get in a fight at that end of the shift against somebody that was really tough. So like, you know, I try to give them that type of respect, that type of thing, just in an aspect of it, you know, the karma of that, right? I think sometimes and not to put it on you, but I think sometimes we talk about this code, and I think for you and me, guys who played it, we kind of have an understanding of what that is. I think the rest of the people kind of consider the code to be some overarching thing. Okay. They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Yeah. And they use it to justify everything. And there's things that I see like in the game that are just bad, like just dirty things, disrespectful things. And they'll be, oh yeah, the code. Yes, I agree. I'm like, what code are you talking about? Yeah, like, yeah. Get out of here with your code. I mean, that's why you played, you know, junior C. Fuck out of here.
That's right. So Pete, I really like what you've done since you stopped playing, since you've retired, right? What you're doing right now is incredible. But I believe that from pretty much like your first coaching gig, did you use every experience from, like, let's say 2010, when you were hired for the Florida Atlantic University Hockey Club? Back then, that experience of coaching with those group of people, you know, and then you also did that prep school, just little gigs like that. I shouldn't say little because they probably have a huge magnitude. All those pieces of the puzzle, did you find that you needed all of that to really be able to perform at the spot you have now?
Yeah, I think everything you do in life prepares you for your future, right? So, you know, when I first took the job, I think looking back at my career and the coaches I had from youth hockey all the way up, and trying to, you know, really picture, you know, the things that they did that made me want to get better, want me to come to the rink the next day with a smile on my face. And the things that they did that made me want to choke them out, you know, like, how can I make sure that I'm not doing that stuff, right? So, like, you know, just from that, I think that played a part in it. And I think every year that I've coached, you know, I've always tried to take every team differently and not try to pigeonhole them and just say, well, you know, we have 80% of the same group from last year, so let's be the same as last year. Every year you evolve, every year you get better. Every year you're trying to teach them to, at least in my opinion, try to teach them how to think the game, not just try to be robots out there. So for me, I can't be a robotic and do the same thing every single day either. So I think, yeah, all those experiences, you know, from playing, from my first year's coaching to like the middle coaching to, you know, getting to the collegiate level, you know, running the prep school, you know, with year coaching in the minors in Carolina. Yes. You know, all those things play a part in it. And when I came back into this role, you know, I thought it helped me be better prepared. It helped me to, you know, talk to my young coaches and try to help them get through. Talk to even my experienced coaches and try to teach them maybe different ways to skin the cat, you know, just different ways to, you know, have the same message, have the same values, but, you know, it's not 2005 anymore. We're not here berating kids anymore. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And there's so many better ways to get your point across, right? If they're getting your point across because they love and respect or respect you. They're not always going to love you. They're not always going to like you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But, if it's coming from a point of where they know that you're saying it out of, wanting them to be better, I think that players will gravitate to that a lot more than fear, or feeling insulted or slighted. So I try to impart those type of messages to my coaches, to my parents, to my staffs, to my players, to still have a high standard. I think that's very important too. You should always come to the rink wanting to be a little bit better than you were the day before, and expecting your teammates to do the same thing. That, to me, that's always been a good teammate, right? It's not the guys who, hey, let's go have a party together. Let's go play ping pong together. Like, I could do that with anybody, right?
Yeah.
But somebody that's going to push me to get better, who's going to support me, and who's going to work to get themselves better, to make our team better. To me, those were the good teammates. All right. So
yeah.
Again, all those things were things I learned. I'm not going to say they were necessarily things that I always lived up to when I was playing. I was a young knucklehead. But the same token, whether it was from the guys, that I played with, through their words or through their actions, it did sink in through osmosis. It did sink in, and every year I went as a player, became more honest, more straightforward, and you got into a leadership role, and then you started imparting that to the younger guys. You get into the coaching role, you start imparting your things. Now you get into the executive role, and you're imparting it to your coaches as well.
Yes. And Pete, what I find, what's most intriguing is I guess the best way to put it is like how multidimensional your gig is for the Florida Panthers. Okay. Yeah. Now, first off, I just want to point out the fact that because man, like I'm telling you, like it's so important to be reminded, Pete, because what you're doing, the fact that your role with an NHL team, your role in the community, your role with the teams that you coach, your role with everything, you represent what a hockey player now looks like, right?
Yeah.
So
I try to.
For everybody after you, Pete, including myself, we have someone to look up to. The kids in Florida can say, I want to be like Pete Worrell. He's in charge of everything to do with the community, with the Florida Panthers. And I can do that too. I want to be a hockey player, just like Mr. Worrell, right?
Yeah, no, they can. I mean, I would say the majority of them would say that they'd rather be, Slava Barkov or Huberto or the Duke, but to your point, I mean, certainly that's something I've taken to heart. I think it's something that certainly grew me up and matured me a lot more, understanding that in this role, a lot more so than even as a player, you're impacting young people's lives. You really have an opportunity to guide them into making better decisions, hopefully better decisions than you made it, in a lot of cases. Right. So it's always been something that in this role that I've taken seriously, and I appreciate the ownership and management here and this organization giving me an opportunity to be in this role and running with it. I'm very appreciative of my staff and the guys that I work with every day who not only make it fun and exciting to come to work every day, but we're true professionals that have done so much to help and guide the hockey in this program, but also set a standard for what this program should and can be, and what we will continue to do, because we're not close to being where we want to be just yet, but we're taking the strides. But yeah, no, I mean, it's an important part of being a coach is being a mentor, right? Like, honestly, like X's and O's are great. The vast majority of these kids are never going to, make $1 playing hockey. The vast majority of these kids are not getting scholarships. That's just the truth.
That's the way
so, to be a teacher, to be a mentor, to be somebody that they can rely on, who will be there to have their back. who will discipline them when they need to be, taught the right things, but somebody they can trust. And having a group of people around me, staff that they know they can trust as well, I think is something that's to my core, and something that I'm very proud to try to accomplish for not only for myself, but not only for the Panthers, but for hockey in general. Hockey's done everything for me, so to be able to give something back to the game means a lot.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, you're definitely giving a lot back. And I mean, I know the listeners, if I didn't really get into it, they'd be emailing me after and saying, why didn't you explain exactly what he does for the team? You guys are saying he did all this great stuff. Now, listen, I know it's multi-dimensional. Let's talk about the community outreach. The Florida Panthers, I'm so happy about what they're doing. They hired Mr. Peter Worrell. Now, I don't know if this is the proper title, but is it hockey community director for the Florida Panthers? Is that one of the titles you have?
That's one of them. I mean, my main title is the hockey director. So
the hockey director.
Yeah. So for all their youth hockey program, anything that's hockey under our building goes through me. So from the adult league players all the way down to the learn to play, first time beginner skaters. It's my job to create programming and create new players, to retain players, to make people's experience at the rink a positive one. Again, I'm very blessed to have an incredible staff. I have an adult league director. I have a youth initiatives director. I have an executive secretary that work for me every day. They're the best team, one of the best teams I've ever been around. So I enjoy every day working with them, and they're true professionals. So that's my main title. I'm also one of the leaders for all of our initiatives for diversity. So whether that is working with the Boys and Girls Club, working with trying to get more minorities in the game. More girls in the game, trying to build a women's program. Unfortunately, we haven't had one down here for too long, at least under the Junior Panthers, title. I think that's always been a mistake. So that's something that's really important that we're going to be building. And then also like for special needs hockey. So like we do, a lot of things for the disabled players to give them an opportunity to get on the ice.
Wow.
Whether it's from, we have young people who are wheelchairs that we have the setups for and the harnesses so they can get up and actually, wheel around on the ice, to all different kinds of special needs. And they're incredible. They're fun. When, I think as coaches, every time we're on the ice with those guys, we can't stop smiling. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I get my hands in quite a bit here on the youth level, and again, it's I think it's testament to this organization, that they have me in this role. Having Brett Peterson as the first Black executive in the NHL, as assistant general manager here.
Right.
Mr. Viola, who's on the NHL's diversity board. I think in the DNA of the Florida Panthers is inclusion. It's the future of this game. Understanding it can't just stay the way it's always been. And if we really want this game to be strong, we need to strengthen our ties with all these different communities.
Yes, of course. And to add to that, Big Pete. It excites me because I feel that I kind of have a passion for like the movement of making hockey more diverse and more inclusive. I feel that way just because, I mean, for my own life story playing, Pete, as you know, us growing up, when we played hockey, we didn't see anyone that looked like us in the rink. And, the NHL didn't really recognize Black players from the past. They picked up a little bit now, a little bit. But I believe that making hockey more diverse one of the biggest steps in that, Pete, is celebrating the history of the diversity, celebrating those players that first broke the barriers, the players that have really set the history, not only for Black players, but for all players. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, having the opportunity to interview guys like Val James, guys like Bill Riley, Craig Martin, like I feel blessed because I'm learning the history, Big Pete, and I'm a player. I think I'm a historian. And I didn't even know that Mike Marzin and Bill Riley, number 2 and 3 Black hockey players to play in the NHL, were on the same line, on the same team. I didn't know that until I interviewed Mr. Bill Riley. So doesn't that go to prove that the history is not being recognized enough, and that we do need to celebrate the history, recognize the characters, so people have a face to look up to celebrate, and to recognize and try to be after?
So I can speak as a Black man, and yeah, certainly I think we've only just tipped the iceberg, right? I remember doing a project. I think when I was in high school, we started a Black history course at our school, and I remember my first project was actually on Willie O'Ree. So getting the NHL, meeting Willie, that was like one of my highlights of my life, right? And growing up, Claude Vilgrain and Tony McKegney out of Quebec, like those were guys that Reggie Savage were guys that I always looked up to, and Freddie Brathwaite, that's my maiden name. That's my mom's side. Brathwaites. We're strong Bajans, right? So those are always like things that like I thought I was pretty in depth into the knowledge of the game, and I know the NHL is now doing the bus tour. And it came down to South Florida recently, and myself and our assistant GM, went down and made a pilgrimage to it to really check it out. And even then, I didn't know all the history, right? So like you're saying, like I didn't like there was a lot of names where I was like, oh, I did not realize Stephen Fletcher was the first Montreal Canadian, and so on and so forth. I didn't know about the Black League in the Maritimes. Like you were talking about Bill Riley and Craig Martin. I didn't realize the history of the Maritimes and what it did for Black hockey players, even to this day, right? So like that's something that I've been doing some research on lately. And if it wasn't for this, the tour, I even then I wouldn't have done, right? So I think it's very important for young Black players. And I think the NHL is doing a better job of promoting that. But again, I think diversity is more than just Black players, right?
Of course. Yep.
To have something that for the Latino players, and seeing, the guys that have played for years, the Rafi Torres and Scotty Gomez's and whatever, for Asians,
even Austin Matthews.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I forget about that, right?
Yeah,
so
Mexican.
For Asians, and Paul Correa and Jim Peg and all the other players of that nature, women, like doing more things for all different type of races, not necessarily trying to single them out or anything of that nature, but just to allow young kids to know that all the stereotypes of this is only for white kids, it's only for white people, you know how it is in the neighborhood. Like, it was for me, it wasn't just the white kids who were like, oh, you should be playing hockey. It was a lot of my Black friends who were like,
of course,
playing hockey, right?
Why are you playing hockey, man?
Yeah, it's a white boy.
It's for white boys.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So to get that past anybody's mind, I think is what's opens it up to different communities to believe that, oh shit, I could give it a try. I mean, who knows what it does, but I mean, I can, there's no line that says I can't play it. Where I think a lot of people, when I was growing up, they felt there was, right? So, I think the NHL has taken great steps. I think Kim Davis, who's in charge of it, has been incredible. I think Willie, obviously, for years with Diversity Task Force, has been an incredible ambassador. I was so proud for him. Not only get in the Hall of Fame, but Congressional Medal of Honor and all the other honors that he's received that are.
His number retired this year in Boston.
His number's retired in Boston. I mean, the impact that he's had off the ice, has dwarfed anything. Obviously, the 3 games that he actually played, but he
looks great too, doesn't he?
Oh my God, he's the most energetic man of his age I have ever seen. Like, it's just me. He like, I remember meeting him and it was like, man, I gotta go to bed. How are you still awake? Like, he's just he's a full energy. He's obviously, again, a great ambassador, and he's done so much for the game, and whether it was hockey in Harlem or Fort DuPont and getting hockey and hockey sticks in players of color's hands. He's been incredible, and I hope that the NHL will continue to mine the past, and just like you said, with guys like Mike and Bill, I think that they would be great to add into the fold, but again, not just them, work with different women from the past, different the Latinos from the past, and really try to open it up and really try to go to all corners and realize that this game can be played and for everybody. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Pete. And like, it's absolutely incredible. And like, if you look at someone like Miss Nurse, for example, for the women's Canadian team, like Sarah Nurse. Is it Sarah Nurse? Her sister's the basketball, she's the hockey. Correct. She's having such a big impact for women. And like, anyone of some ethnicity, but women in particular, correct, she's like the symbol for how powerful that could be. All the endorsements, the commercials, the influence she must have on all the young girls in Canada and the States. Like, you should see it in Canada, man. She's on, like, I'm sure you've seen the commercials, right? Like during the Olympics and whatnot, right?
Absolutely.
It's absolutely incredible, man. And like Pete, like you're talking about Willie, and like, I just find that the history is so incredible. Like, Willie was able to accomplish this in 1958. We've both learned a lot. You doing the bus tour recently, me having the certain guests that I've had recently. There was a 17-year hiatus, man. Yeah. And then Mr. Mike Marzen, he comes in for the expansion club, Washington Capitals, the nation's capital. Mike Marzen was 5'8", 215 pounds. Can you imagine how strong, like a bull, this man must have been? Right? So then he's got Mr. Bill Riley, who's like 5 years older than him, getting called up and play. And they put them on the same line, Pete. They put them on the same line, and they became such friends. And like, I'm learning all this while I'm interviewing them. And I'm just like, my God, Mr. Riley, this is so incredible that I'm learning this type of history. Like, I find that was the biggest part of hockey history that I've been a part of, being able to interview Mr. Bill Riley. Right.
Again, what all those guys did was spark a light for guys in my generation, right? The Anson Carters, the myself, the Kevin Weeks, Mike Greer's, all of us, right? So like, obviously we had a love for the game, and I think we would have loved it anyways. But when you saw those guys, when you saw the Grand Fures, it just kind of made you feel a little extra special. And hopefully, my generation was able to do that as well. I mean, obviously, I was lucky enough to play the same time as Jerome, and the amount of black players Jerome brought to the rink is immeasurable. He owned
the city, man.
Oh man, he was such a special player.
Yeah,
and just a good person. That people just want to emulate. So I mean, hopefully, we were able to do that for the generation that's playing today. And I think, again, like I said, the amount of young black kids that we've been able to bring to the games this year, and not even tell them, but when they see number 10 jump on the ice and they're like, who's that?
Anthony?
Oh my God, Anthony DeClaire, and
Yeah.
they want to be him. They want to watch him. They want to come back to games, and you know, I don't. Again, when you're playing, you don't necessarily realize it as much, right? But it has such an influence on the next generation, and God bless them, you know, and you know, again, the more players of color, you know, more women, it only makes our game better. It brings more talent to our game, and you know, it's going to bring more money to our game. Just more people coming to watch it. I mean, that's how you become an NFL. That's how you become an NBA. Like, everybody wants to play it, you know, and you know, maybe when that happens, maybe that's going to be able to help us, you know, fight back on the cost of the game, right? You know, and the things that are the barriers, not only to the people of color, not only to you know, people who are food insecure or homeless, or whatever. The cost of the game is what drives a lot of people from it. I don't care if you're a middle class family or you make a lot of money. Oh, 100%. But I think if our game becomes more expansive and it gets more people in the stands, and you know, I think those costs can be worked out and to come back to something that's I want to say normal, but normaler, I guess would be the better word.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I agree with you 100%. I absolutely love where this conversation went. I'm telling you, man, as we were discussing before the recording, I'm feeling a responsibility to address some of these things because the movement is real and the movement's right now. And the talk creates the awareness, which leads into the action, Pete. And the comments that you made about Jerome McGinley, Mr. Peter Worrell, you know, about bringing people in and the influence. I'm telling you right now, Pete, I know his hands were a little bit better than yours, a little bit better, right? But the impact of a young kid in the state of Florida seeing you with that hat on, that shirt on, and your title, that's enough for them to say, Mommy, Daddy, I want to try this thing out here. Right. And you need to know that. And I just want to personally thank you for being such a big part of this movement, Big Pete. Like you are, bro. You deserve a lot of credit, man. I'm so happy and proud of what you're doing. And I know I went over the limit, buddy, but I had to touch upon all these topics. And
I talk a lot, so that's okay.
Hey, man. I get it. And just so you know, Mr. Bill Riley, when I told him that somehow I had to break to Peter Worrell that I needed to get some more content because our video didn't save. He was asking so many questions about you, man. And I told him what you were doing, and his whole face lit up. He was so proud and happy to know that you're growing the sport in the state of Florida, brother, and everywhere in general. But he was so proud of you, man. And you know what I mean? And I wanted to let you know that.
That's that says and means a lot. It really does. I mean, it's to think of somebody you look up to, respecting what you do. It means a lot. I lost for words.
Amen. I just appreciate you coming back on, Big Pete. You know, I hope that you do come back on again. Right. Anytime. And I can't wait to get this episode out because, you know what I mean? We addressed some really important things that are really special to my heart and a lot of the listeners. So I wanted to thank the listeners for tuning into another episode of The Sheriff featuring special guest, Big Pete Worrell. We got into everything, guys, and we're going to sign off now.